Hello, my name is Gulnar and welcome to my channel. This is my first video in a monologue format. So for several months I have been watching different channels related to career, switching jobs, switching career path, changing career path, being unemployed, etc. And I found them very useful, very interesting to some extent. So I decided why not to share my journey. Maybe I have also knowledge and insights that would be useful for you guys. Today, I'm going to share my experience related to Japan, job hunting, studying, some intro. So I did my bachelor's degree in education, my master's in education. And so while I was working at a graduate school of business back in my home country, I realized that I lack some business skills. For 2 years, for a bit more than 2 years, I had been applying for grad schools, and finally, I got accepted to a Japanese university and got a scholarship. So I was immensely glad, and I have recently graduated with an MBA degree from the Japanese university. So while I was studying, while I was a second year student, I started applying for jobs. So actively, I started applying since January 2025. However, to some extent, getting job in Japan is kind of challenging. Well, first of all, maybe it depends on the luck. So anyone needs a good luck. And then secondly, which is very important, it's the level of Japanese knowledge. So if you are intending to study in Japan and then get a job, so I would advise you to come to Japan with at least intermediate level of Japanese. So my Japanese was at the very basic level. And since my university was full of international students, only maybe around 2% of the students were Japanese, it was really hard to get a decent level of Japanese. Although I have been studying Japanese for 2 years, basic level, elementary level, um, it was kind of difficult to practice my Japanese. I do have really good friends from India, from Vietnam. They had known Japanese at a very good level prior to coming to Japan. So, whilst doing their master's degree, they successfully improved their knowledge of Japanese, maybe to N2 and 1 level. And so they successfully landed a job, which is really great. But as for me, since my Japanese maybe was at around N4 and 5, maybe between N4 and 5 level, it was kind of challenging for me to find a job. But anyways, I was applying also for internships, etc. So I successfully passed the screening for an internship at a consulting company. So I also passed the interview, but I didn't know that I passed. So I figured it out in 2 weeks after um, returning back to my home country. But since I had some obligations, like if my scholarship paid for a return ticket, so uh, I shouldn't be going back to Japan for at least 4 or 5 months. So, a few takeaways from what I have already talked about. If you plan to stay in Japan, learn Japanese prior to coming to Japan, prior to starting your academic journey, at least at a pre-intermediate level. Or try to study at a university where there are predominantly Japanese students. But in my university, I said around 98% of students were international, so kind of a very comfortable zone, but at the same time, not the zone for growth. Um, work very hard on your Japanese, and also I was paying so much attention to my academic studies, but which is also really important. But some of the students were paying attention to the Japanese. They were putting so much effort on studying Japanese because by the end of the day, the companies, especially in Japan, they more require the knowledge of Japanese rather than the subject knowledge. And I do remember when I was like during the summer holidays, when I was in Roppongi, I met my senpai, and he said, "You know what? Like, to some extent, the companies don't care about your subject knowledge. They do care more about your Japanese because they can teach you the skill. So this is a really good insight that you can make use of it. Start applying to jobs earlier because I made a mistake. I started very late. You should apply like kind of even for internships, like 2 years prior, at least 1 year prior. I had an opportunity to stay with a job hunting visa, but weighing all the pros and cons and being realist, since my Japanese is not at least not in a at a entry level, so I decided to go back to my country, and maybe I will go back to Japan, but after gaining some like kind of a good knowledge of Japanese and good tech skills, because you either need to be good at tech or good at Japanese. So, and also, which is very important, try to make Japanese friends. It could be very challenging, but if you will make Japanese friends, you will be able to practice your Japanese, um, to learn a lot, and which will be a plus. So by now, these are the key takeaways. So if you find them useful, please put a thumb up, leave a comment. I would appreciate it. This is it. Now, bye bye.